The contract, the wedding of strangers. Some marriages begin with love. Others begin with lies. Theirs began with a signature on paper and a debt that could never be repaid. But what started as a transaction would become something neither of them could have predicted. Something that would shatter every wall they had built around their hearts. Natasha Blake stood before the mirror in a cramped hotel room, staring at her reflection in the borrowed wedding dress. The white fabric felt like a costume, a beautiful lie wrapped around her trembling body. Her dark hair fell in soft waves past her shoulders, and her hazel eyes were rimmed with unshed tears. She was 26 years old, about to marry a man she had met exactly 3 times, and every instinct screamed at her to run. But running meant losing everything. Running meant watching her younger brother die. 3 sharp knocks on the door made her jump. Her best friend Rachel poked her head in, her expression a mixture of concern and forced cheerfulness. "The car is here," Rachel said softly. "Are you ready? Ready to sell myself? Ready to become property?" Natasha wanted to scream. Instead, she nodded, smoothing down the dress with shaking hands. "As ready as I'll ever be." The drive to City Hall was silent. Natasha watched the city blur past the window, each passing block taking her further from the life she knew and closer to a future she could not imagine. Her mind kept returning to that terrible day 2 months ago, when the doctors had delivered their verdict. Her brother, 16-year-old Ethan, needed an experimental treatment. The cost was staggering, $600,000, money she would never have, not in her lifetime of working 2 jobs and barely scraping by. Then came the offer that changed everything. Damian Cross, billionaire CEO of Cross Industries, needed a wife, not for love, not for companionship, but for appearances. His board of directors demanded stability. His investors wanted to see a family man, not the ruthless bachelor whose personal life made headlines for all the wrong reasons. The arrangement was simple. Marry him for 2 years. Play the role of devoted wife at public events, and in return, he would pay for Ethan's treatment in full, plus a substantial sum when the marriage ended. It should have been an easy decision. It was not. But watching Ethan grow weaker each day, seeing the fear in his eyes when he thought she was not looking, that made the choice for her. The courthouse was cold and impersonal, all marble floors and echoing footsteps. A clerk led them to a small room where a judge waited, looking bored and impatient. And there, standing by the window in a perfectly tailored black suit, was Damian Cross. He turned when she entered, and Natasha felt her breath catch. She had seen his photos online, of course. Everyone had. But pictures did not capture the raw magnetism of his presence. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with broad shoulders that filled out his suit jacket perfectly. His face was all sharp angles and strong lines, a jaw that looked carved from stone, cheekbones that could cut glass. His hair was dark, almost black, styled back from his forehead. But it was his eyes that held her captive. They were a startling shade of blue, so light they were almost silver, and they were completely cold. Empty, like looking into the eyes of a man who had forgotten how to feel anything at all. "You came," he said, his voice deep and smooth. There was no warmth in it, no emotion. "Just a statement of fact. Did you think I would not?" Natasha replied, forcing strength into her voice that she did not feel. "People surprise me." He walked toward her, each step measured and precise. When he stopped in front of her, close enough that she could smell his expensive cologne, he studied her face with clinical detachment. "You understand the terms?" "Perfectly." She lifted her chin, refusing to be intimidated. "I play the devoted wife. You pay for my brother's treatment. 2 years, then we both walk away." "Good." He turned to the judge. "Let us begin." The ceremony was over in minutes. There were no flowers, no music, no guests, just legal words spoken in monotone, a contract being formalized. When the judge said those final words, "You may kiss the bride," Damian leaned in mechanically, clearly intending a brief, meaningless peck on the lips. Something inside Natasha rebelled. She was not some object to be handled with cold efficiency. She was not a checkbox on his to-do list. If she was going to sell 2 years of her life, if she was going to wear his ring and his name, then he was going to acknowledge her as a human being, not a transaction. Her hand shot up and grabbed his tie, pulling him down hard. His eyes went wide with shock. The first real emotion she had seen cross his face. For one frozen second, they stared at each other. Her hand fisted in expensive silk, his breath mingling with hers. Then she kissed him. It was not gentle. It was not sweet. It was fire and fury and desperation poured into one explosive moment. Her lips crashed against his with all the anger and fear and defiance she had been holding back. She kissed him like she was branding him, marking him, claiming some small piece of power in a situation where she had none. Damien went completely still. His hands hung frozen at his sides, his entire body rigid with surprise. She had caught him completely off guard, shattered his careful control in a single impulsive act. Then something shifted. His hands came up and gripped her waist, his fingers pressing into her sides through the thin fabric of her dress. His lips, which had been passive with shock, suddenly responded with a hunger that matched her own. His mouth moved against hers, demanding, taking, giving back as fiercely as she gave. The kiss deepened. His tongue swept against her lips, seeking entrance, and she opened for him without thinking. The taste of him flooded her senses, something dark and addictive. One of his hands slid up her back, leaving trails of heat in its wake, while the other tightened on her hip, pulling her closer until their bodies pressed together from chest to thigh. Natasha felt the hard planes of his body against her softer curves, felt the way his breathing had changed, rough and uneven, felt the undeniable evidence of his arousal pressing against her stomach. He wanted her. His body could not lie, even if his cold words did. Her fingers released his tie and slid into his hair, gripping the dark strands and pulling him even closer. She wanted more, needed to feel something real in this sea of pretense and contracts. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his eyes had changed. The cold emptiness was gone, replaced by something fierce and burning. His pupils were dilated, his lips wet from her kiss, his carefully styled hair messed up from her fingers. He looked undone, vulnerable, human. "I am not going to be your obedient little wife," Natasha said, her voice husky and breathless. "If you want me to play a role, then you better be ready to play yours too. No half measures, no cold shoulders. You want people to believe this marriage is real, then you are going to have to sell it better than that." Damien stared at her, and she watched a dozen emotions flash across his face before he locked them down again. But something had cracked in his armor. She had felt it in that kiss, had felt the man underneath all that ice, and he was burning. "Fine," he said finally, his voice rough. "But do not start something you cannot finish, Natasha. Because I do not do anything halfway either." It was a warning and a promise. Natasha felt a shiver run down her spine that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with anticipation. They signed the papers in tense silence. When the judge declared them married, Damien took her hand and led her out to a waiting car. His hand was warm, his grip firm but not painful. He did not let go even when they reached the car. Even when they slid into the back seat and the driver pulled away from the curb, the silence stretched between them, thick and charged with everything unsaid. Natasha watched the city pass by again, but this time she was acutely aware of the man beside her. The heat of his body, the way his thumb traced absent circles on the back of her hand, the way he kept stealing glances at her when he thought she was not looking. "Where are we going?" she asked finally. "My house. Your things have already been moved to the East Wing. You will have your own suite of rooms. Privacy when you want it. Separate rooms." She said it flatly, testing. That was the agreement. "And if I want to change the agreement?" He turned to look at her fully, then his eyes burning into hers. "What are you suggesting?" "I am suggesting that we just had our first kiss in front of a judge, and it was more real than anything either of us expected. I am suggesting that maybe this arrangement could be more than just paperwork and appearances. Do not confuse physical attraction with anything deeper," Damien said, but his voice lacked conviction. "People want things in the heat of the moment that they regret later. Is that what you think? That you will regret kissing me?" "I think," he said slowly, his eyes locked on hers, "that you are dangerous. You make me feel things I have not felt in years, things I swore I would never feel again." "Good," Natasha whispered, leaning closer. "Maybe you need someone dangerous in your life. Maybe we both do." The car pulled up to massive iron gates that opened onto a long driveway. The house that appeared before them took Natasha's breath away. It was enormous, all glass and stone and modern architecture, rising from manicured grounds like something out of a magazine. Beautiful and cold, just like the man who owned it. "Welcome home, wife," Damien said as the car stopped. There was something dark in his voice, something challenging. Natasha looked from the house to the man beside her, at his guarded eyes and tense shoulders, at the way he held himself like he was preparing for battle instead of bringing his bride home. "Thank you, husband," she replied, matching his tone. "I have a feeling this is going to be very interesting." She had no idea how right she was. Breaking through. Ice, the house of secrets. The mansion was a museum of wealth and loneliness. Natasha followed Damien through rooms that belonged in architectural magazines, each one perfectly designed and utterly devoid of warmth. White marble floors reflected recessed lighting. Designer furniture sat arranged in precise angles. Not a single photograph anywhere. Not a splash of color or a sign of actual life. "You're sweet," Damien said, opening double doors to reveal a bedroom larger than her entire old apartment. Everything was cream and beige and safe. Beautiful but sterile. The walk-in closet has been stocked with appropriate clothing. Credit cards are in the dresser, top drawer. Use them as needed for anything you require. He was slipping back into business mode, putting distance between them with every clipped word. Natasha felt frustration rise in her chest. "Is this how it is going to be?" she asked. "You kiss me like the world is ending, then treat me like an employee you are assigning tasks to?" His jaw tightened. What happened at the courthouse was a mistake. We got caught up in the moment. It cannot happen again. Why not? Because this is a business arrangement, Natasha. You signed a contract. I signed a contract. Let us not complicate things with emotions neither of us can afford. Emotions. She laughed without humor. You mean like the way your hands shook when you touched me? Like the way you could not stop staring at my mouth during the entire car ride here? Those kinds of emotions you cannot afford? Damien's eyes flashed with something dangerous. He took a step toward her, then caught himself and stopped. You do not understand what you are asking for. Then explain it to me. She moved closer, refusing to let him retreat. Tell me why you need a fake wife so badly. Tell me why a man who can have anyone he wants would rather buy a bride than find someone real. For a long moment she thought he would not answer. His face was a mask of control, every muscle locked down tight. Then something cracked just a little and words spilled out harsh and bitter. Because real gets you hurt, he said quietly. Because I already tried love, tried building something meaningful, and it destroyed me. 3 years ago, I was engaged. Her name was Catherine. She was beautiful, intelligent, from the right family. Everyone said we were perfect together. I believed them. I even believed her when she said she loved me. He turned away, staring out the window at grounds he probably did not even see. The night before our wedding, I found her in bed with my business partner. Turned out she never loved me. She loved my money, my name, the lifestyle I could provide. The affair had been going on for 8 months. They were planning to take me for everything I had, use the marriage to get access to my accounts and business secrets, then disappear together. Natasha felt her heart squeeze painfully. Damien, I am so sorry. Do not be. His voice hardened again. It taught me a valuable lesson. Love is just another transaction. People always want something. At least with our arrangement, we are both honest about what we are getting. No lies, no false promises, no hearts to break. That is the saddest thing I have ever heard, Natasha said softly. You are so terrified of being hurt again that you would rather live in this beautiful mausoleum surrounded by things instead of people, feeling nothing instead of risking everything. It is safer this way. Safer. She shook her head. You are not safe. You are buried alive. There is a difference. He spun to face her, and the raw pain in his eyes made her breath catch. What do you want from me, Natasha? You want me to pretend this is real? Want me to play house and act like we have some fairy tale future? I cannot give you that. I will not. I do not want pretend, she said, closing the distance between them until she stood close enough to feel his body heat. I want honest. I want real. Even if real is messy and complicated and scary, I would rather have that than this cold perfection you have wrapped around yourself like armor. You are asking for something I do not know how to give anymore. Then learn. She reached up and touched his face gently, her fingertips tracing the hard line of his jaw. Teach yourself how to feel again. Let me help you. Damien closed his eyes and she felt him tremble under her touch. His hand came up and covered hers, pressing her palm against his cheek like he was starving for contact. I do not know how, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Start small, Natasha suggested. Have dinner with me tonight. Not as strangers following a contract, but as two people getting to know each other. Tell me about yourself. Ask me about myself, just talk. No walls, no distance. Can you do that? He opened his eyes, and what she saw there made her heart race. Vulnerability, fear, hope. I can try. They had dinner in the formal dining room, which could have seated 30 people, but tonight held only the two of them at one end of a ridiculously long table. The staff served course after course of exquisite food, but Natasha barely tasted any of it. She was too focused on the man across from her, watching him slowly relax as the evening wore on. She told him about growing up with just her brother after their parents died in a car accident when she was 18. About dropping out of college to work 3 jobs so Ethan could stay in school. About the fear that consumed her when he got sick. The helplessness of watching someone you love suffer and being unable to help. Damien listened with an intensity that made her feel seen in a way she had not experienced in years. When she finished, he reached across the table and took her hand. "You are an incredible person," he said simply. "What you have done for your brother, the sacrifices you have made, most people would not have that kind of strength. I did what anyone would do for family." "No," he shook his head. "Most people talk about family bonds. You actually live them. Ethan is lucky to have you." Something warm bloomed in Natasha's chest. "Tell me about your family," she prompted gently. Damien's expression darkened. "Not much to tell. My father built Cross Industries from nothing, but he was never satisfied. Nothing was ever good enough, especially not his son. My mother left when I was 10. Could not handle his anger, his constant criticism. Cannot say I blame her, but she never looked back. Never called or wrote. Just vanished like I never existed. That must have hurt terribly. It taught me to rely on myself. When I took over the company at 25 after my father's heart attack, everyone expected me to fail. Said I was too young, too inexperienced. I proved them all wrong. Built the company into something 3 times the size of what my father created. But somehow it still is not enough. I still feel like that kid trying desperately to earn approval that will never come." Natasha stood and walked around the table, standing beside his chair. Damien looked up at her with guarded eyes, and she saw the lonely boy hidden inside the powerful man. "You do not need anyone's approval," she said firmly. "You have already proven yourself 1,000 times over. The only person you need to satisfy is yourself." "I do not know how to do that either," he admitted. "Then we will figure it out together." She leaned down and kissed his forehead softly. It was not sexual, not demanding. Just comfort. Just connection. Just one human being telling another that they were not alone. Damien made a sound low in his throat, somewhere between a sigh and a groan. His arms came around her waist, pulling her into his lap. He buried his face against her neck, breathing her in, and she felt wetness on her skin that might have been tears. They stayed like that for a long time, holding each other in the silent dining room. No words needed. Just presence. Just the beginning of something neither of them could name yet, but both desperately wanted. Later, after Damien had walked her to her suite and said goodnight with obvious reluctance, Natasha lay in her enormous bed and stared at the ceiling. Her phone buzzed with a text from Rachel asking how the wedding went. She smiled and typed back a simple response. Better than expected. This might actually work. What she did not say, what she barely admitted to herself, was that she was already falling for her husband. This man who hid so much pain behind walls of ice. This man who was so terrified of feeling anything that he would rather buy a wife than risk his heart. This man who trembled when she touched him with gentleness, like kindness was a foreign language he had forgotten how to speak. She wanted to teach him that language again. Wanted to crack through every layer of protection until she found the real Damien underneath. The one who painted emotion onto canvas and felt things so deeply that he had to lock them away just to survive. It would not be easy. He would fight her every step of the way, but Natasha had not survived losing her parents, raising a teenager alone and watching her brother nearly die without learning how to fight. She knew how to push when someone needed pushing, knew how to hold on when they wanted to run. Damien Cross had no idea what he had gotten himself into when he married her, but he was about to find out. 2 floors up, in his own bedroom, Damien stood at the window and looked out at the city lights below. His chest felt tight, his emotions churning in ways he had not allowed in 3 years. Natasha terrified him. She saw through every defense, every carefully constructed wall. She touched him and he felt things. She talked to him and he wanted to share secrets he had never told anyone. This was supposed to be simple. A business transaction. 2 years of appearances and public smiles, then back to his safe, controlled existence. But nothing about Natasha was simple. She was fire and strength and impossible compassion. She looked at him like he mattered, like he was worth saving. He did not know if he could open himself up again. Did not know if he had the courage to risk the kind of pain that nearly destroyed him last time. But for the first time in 3 years, he wanted to try. His phone buzzed with an email from his assistant confirming the payment to the hospital. Ethan's treatment would begin next week. Damien had already instructed his personal physician to oversee the case, to make sure the boy received the absolute best care available. He told himself it was just part of the contract, just business. But he knew it was more than that. He was doing it for her, for Natasha, because seeing the worry leave her eyes, seeing her smile with genuine hope instead of forced bravery, that mattered to him in ways that had nothing to do with contracts or agreements. This was a problem, a complication he had not anticipated, but maybe, just maybe, it was the kind of complication that could save him instead of destroy him. Walls come down. The gallery of truth. 3 weeks into their marriage, Natasha discovered Damien's secret. She had been exploring the mansion, familiarizing herself with the maze of rooms and hallways when she found a locked door on the 3rd floor. Unlike the sleek modern locks throughout the rest of the house, this one was old-fashioned, requiring an actual key. Curiosity burned through her. She asked the housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, about it the next morning. The older woman's face softened with something like sadness. "That is Master Damien's private gallery," she said quietly. "He has not opened it in years, not since before the engagement fell apart. I only go in there once a month to dust." "What is in there?" "His heart," Mrs. Chen said simply. "Or at least what is left of it." The words haunted Natasha all day. That evening, when Damien came home from work, she was waiting for him in his study. He looked exhausted, his tie loose, dark circles under his eyes. But his face lit up when he saw her, a transformation that made her heart skip. "Bad day?" she asked. "Long negotiations with difficult people." He poured himself a scotch, then raised an eyebrow. "Want one?" "No, but I want to ask you something." She stood and walked to him. They had fallen into an easy physical comfort over the past weeks. Casual touches and stolen kisses that never went beyond gentle, "I found a locked room on the 3rd floor. Mrs. Chen said it is your private gallery." Damien went still, his glass halfway to his lips. "She should not have told you about that. Can I see it?" "No." The word was flat, final. "Why not?" "Because it is private, Natasha. That room contains things I do not share with anyone, not even your wife, especially not my wife." He drank the scotch in one swallow, then set the glass down harder than necessary. "Some things are better left locked away." Natasha felt hurt lance through her chest, but she pushed it down. This was not about her feelings. This was about his. "You are scared," she said softly. "Scared that if you show me who you really are, I will leave like everyone else." "I am not scared. I am practical. That room represents a version of me that no longer exists. There is no point in dragging it out." "Or maybe," Natasha suggested, moving closer, "you keep it locked away because that version of you is the one you miss most. The one who felt things and created beauty and believed in something more than contracts and control." Damien's jaw clenched. "You do not know what you are talking about. Then show me. Prove me wrong. Open that door and let me see what you are so desperate to hide." "Why?" His voice rose, frustration breaking through his careful control. "Why does it matter so much to you? This is not a real marriage, Natasha. You are here for 2 years, then you get your money and move on. Why do you care about locked rooms and old pain?" The question hung between them, sharp and honest. Natasha took a breath and gave him truth in return. "Because I'm falling in love with you," she said simply. The words dropped like stones into still water, sending ripples through everything. "I know I am not supposed to. I know this is just business. But I cannot help it, Damien. When you smile at me over breakfast, when you ask about my day like it really matters, when you hold me while we watch movies and I feel your heartbeat against my back, I fall a little more. And I cannot love half of you. I need all of you, even the parts you think are broken." Damien stared at her like she had spoken a foreign language. His face cycled through shock, fear, longing, panic. "You cannot love me," he said hoarsely. "I will only disappoint you. Let me be the judge of that. Natasha." Her name came out broken. "I do not know how to be what you need. You already are." She cupped his face in her hands, forcing him to meet her eyes. "You are kind and brilliant and so much stronger than you give yourself credit for. Yes, you have been hurt. Yes, you built walls to protect yourself, but you are still in there, Damien. That man who creates and feels and hopes. I see him every time you let your guard down. Every time you laugh at something silly or hold my hand just because you want to touch me. That is the man I am falling for. The real you." A tear slid down his cheek and Natasha brushed it away with her thumb. "Let me in," she whispered. "Please show me your gallery. Show me your heart. Trust me with who you really are." For a long moment, Damien just stood there, trembling under her touch. Then slowly he nodded. They climbed the stairs in silence. Damien pulled a key from his pocket, his hands shaking slightly as he unlocked the door. It swung open on silent hinges, revealing a room that took Natasha's breath away. The space was huge, with floor-to-ceiling windows on one side flooding it with moonlight. But it was the walls that captured her attention. Every available surface was covered with paintings. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, landscapes and portraits, abstract pieces and hyper-realistic studies, each one radiating emotion so raw it hurt to look at. Natasha walked slowly through the gallery, studying each piece. She saw pain and beauty tangled together, saw loneliness and longing, saw a man desperate to connect, desperate to feel, pouring his soul onto canvas because he could not figure out how to share it with another person. "These are extraordinary," she breathed. "Damien, you have real talent. These belong in museums. They belong here," he said quietly, "where no one can see them, where they cannot be judged or criticized or found wanting." "Is that what your father did? Judged your art?" Damien nodded, still standing in the doorway like he might flee at any moment. "He called it a waste of time. Said art was for people who could not make it in the real world. When I told him I wanted to go to art school instead of business school, he gave me an ultimatum. Give up painting or give up my inheritance. So I gave up painting. Learned to be the man he wanted instead of the man I was. That must have killed something inside you." "It did." His voice was hollow. "I locked this part of myself away and tried to forget it existed. Then I met Catherine and thought maybe I could be happy anyway. Thought maybe love would fill the empty spaces. But that was a lie too. Everything was a lie." Natasha walked back to him, taking both his hands in hers. "I am not lying to you. When I say I love you, I mean it. When I say I see you, I mean the real you. The artist and the businessman. The hurt boy and the strong man. All of it together, messy and complicated and beautiful. I do not deserve you," Damien whispered. "That is not your decision to make." She rose on her toes and kissed him softly. "I choose you. All of you. Now choose me back. Choose to trust me. Choose to let me love you even when it terrifies you." Something broke in Damien. His control shattered completely. He pulled her against him and kissed her with desperate hunger. With 3 years of buried emotion pouring out in a flood, his hands tangled in her hair, his body pressing hers back against the wall as he kissed her like she was oxygen and he was drowning. Natasha kissed him back with equal fervor, her hands sliding under his shirt to find warm skin and hard muscle. She poured everything into that kiss. Every hope, every fear, every ounce of love she had been holding back. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Damien rested his forehead against hers. "I love you," he said hoarsely. "God help me, I love you so much it terrifies me. You walked into my life and destroyed every wall I built. You make me want to feel again, to hope again. You make me believe that maybe I deserve something real after all." Joy exploded in Natasha's chest. "Say it again." "I love you." He kissed her between each word. "I love you. I love you. I am yours completely, Natasha, for however long you will have me. Forever," she promised. "I want forever with you." They made love there in the gallery, surrounded by his art, by pieces of his soul made visible. It was not gentle or careful. It was raw and desperate and real. It was two broken people finding wholeness in each other. It was the end of pretending and the beginning of something true. Afterwards, they lay tangled together on the floor, heart still racing, hands still clasping. Damien traced patterns on her bare skin, his touch reverent. "I want to start painting again," he said quietly. "I want to create something beautiful with you as my inspiration. Will you model for me? Natasha smiled, her heart so full it ached. I will do anything you want. I want you to move into my bedroom. No more separate suites. I want to fall asleep holding you every night and wake up with you every morning. Yes. I want to tear up that contract. Make this marriage real in every way that matters. No end date, no escape clause. Just you and me building a life together. Tears slid down Natasha's cheeks. I want that too. More than anything. They held each other as moonlight painted them silver, two souls finding home in each other's arms. The contract that had brought them together no longer mattered. They had created something far more binding, something that could not be written down or signed away. They had created love. Real, messy, complicated, beautiful love, and neither of them would ever settle for anything less again. Damien started painting the next day. He converted one end of the gallery into a shared studio, setting up two easels side by side. Natasha had never painted before, but he taught her with patience and gentle encouragement. They spent hours creating together, talking and laughing, stealing kisses when inspiration struck. The house transformed. Natasha filled it with color and warmth. She hung cheerful artwork, planted flowers in the gardens, played music loud enough to echo through halls that had known only silence. The staff seemed lighter too, smiling more, moving through rooms that finally felt lived in. Ethan's treatment was working. He was getting stronger every day, color returning to his face, energy returning to his step. Natasha cried with relief when the doctors declared him in remission. Damien held her through those tears, his own eyes wet, celebrating a victory that belonged to both of them. 6 months after their cold courthouse wedding, they stood in the same gallery where they had first made love and painted side by side. Natasha worked on an abstract piece full of warm colors, while Damien painted her portrait, capturing not just her face but the light that radiated from her. I have a question, he said, not taking his eyes off his canvas. What is that? Will you marry me? For real this time. With flowers and music and people who love us. With vows we write ourselves, promises we actually mean. Natasha set down her brush and turned to him, her eyes shining. Are you proposing to your wife? I am proposing to the woman I love. He finally looked at her, and what she saw in his eyes made her heart soar. Pure love, pure trust, pure happiness. Marry me again, Natasha. But this time, let it be because you choose me, not because you need something from me. I do choose you, she said, throwing her arms around him. I choose you every single day. Yes, I will marry you. I will marry you 1,000 times if that is what it takes to make you believe I am not going anywhere. They kissed, long and sweet, surrounded by art and love and the promise of all the tomorrows ahead. Outside, the sun broke through clouds, flooding the gallery with golden light. It felt like a benediction, like the universe itself was blessing their choice. Their fake marriage had become the most real thing in either of their lives, and they would spend the rest of those lives being grateful for the contract that brought them together and the love that made them stay.